So hi everybody, let's talk about the chapter 2, which is entitled The Natural Law by Saint Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas teaches that the conscience and the law of God share the same binding force. This requires careful consideration in order to avoid misunderstanding his point. He does not say that the judgment of human reason stand autonomous to or independent from the law of God. This natural law, the master principle of natural law, wrote Aquinas, was that good is to be done and pursued and evil avoided. Aquinas stated that the reason reveals particular natural laws that are good for humans, such as self-preservation, marriage and family, and the desire to know God.
So now, we will proceed on the topic about the Deus non daretur by Thomas Aquinas. So Thomas Aquinas was an Italian Dominican prior, philosopher, Catholic priest, and doctor of the church. He is an immensely influential philosopher, theologian, and jurist in the traditions of scholasticism. So this is also known with the latter as the Doctor Angelicus and the Doctor Communis. So, Deus non daretur by Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas begins from his standpoint of faith. His perspective presupposes the existence of a God, who is the author, which means the source, and the goal, which means the ends of all reality. However, this relates in the freedom with the human person, and so enables him or her in the freedom to recognize true reasons. So the very principles of foundations of all things. So this Deus non daretur, or in other words, as if God did not exist, no? Which a world and a man are autonomous and independent from the transcendental God, which this idea defended that the principles of morality are rooted in the human nature itself so firmly that their existence and validity do not depend on the presence or absence of any divine commandments and prohibitions. So it says that if there is no God, the principles of morality would exist in man and would be expressed in the dictates of common sense. So for Aquinas, we do not need the Bible or religious class, even the churches, for us to understand the natural law. Our instinct shows that basic good and reasons allows us to drive the natural law from them. So, the natural law involves the inclinations and reasons. So, when you say inclinations, it is where you need to recognize what is good and reason needed to know how to pursue good. So, if moral law comes from God's eternal law, then divine law is good and avoiding evil. So that the human freedom is imprint of the divine within the very being of the human persons. So the divine can be understood as governing all that is man's task is to act in such a way that his or her participations in the full upholding of nature directs to its fulfillment. So in this Exodus Nanderatur, it is all about the person who is doing everything that he wanted to do. Even without God, he will pursue what he wants to do because he has the freedom. He focuses on the freedom of humans. And whatever it is, he will do that because he don't care if it's good or evil. Okay? Because he don't follow what is the God's rule. No? He only follows the natural law that has been given.
So hello, good day. So the assigned topic to me is all about the three contemporary questions. So there are relevant questions that can help the Filipino student appreciate domestic natural law. So if we follow what has been earlier said, the natural law is man's participation in the executions of the good and avoidance of evil. through the use of his or her reasons and will. Then, 3 questions that originated from the writing of RHEEMA can be appropriated to highlight the relevance of Aquinas today. So the 3 questions are: who am I? Who do I want to be? And how can I get there? So I will discuss first the who am I question. So domestic natural law interrogates the identity of the human person. If one is endowed with his or her own facticity, history, and abilities, his or her present reality is accessible to him or her through self-knowledge and reflections. So this assessment of one's own strengths and weaknesses is critical in being able to do good and avoid evil. This ethical task is not only an outward truth. Doing good determines the actor in a reality that is good, and doing bad malforms him or her too. So the reality of human identity is that is something defined yet also ways in process. The task of knowing the self is point of departure for the task of building up the identity of the human person. Ethics here does not only cover the issues that usually call our attention, such as abortion, euthanasia, or other burning moral questions of this sort. So ethics for Aquinas is primarily a question of human identity. All human acts are moral acts, Aquinas said. Since it is through his or her acts the man defines him or herself, the ethical man is the task of his or her free acts. So the second question is, who do I want to be? Defining the self gives one a chance to clarify his or her goal. Hence, it is important to raise the second question, who do I want to be? The human person's self-acknowledge is dynamic. It is always open to the direction set by what one wants to make himself or herself. Self-knowledge here is malleable towards self-determination. Ethical acts give direction through freedom to build up the self towards a particular goal. So the human reason is so gifted that it is able to discern through options and daily realities. Decisions are the basis of one's freedom in choosing what one wants to be. The self also considered the truthful transitions to what one thought to be. Given this knowledge of himself or herself and the ability to evaluate his or her options and responsibilities, the self can also better give directions to himself or herself. So the last question is, how can I get there? The third question is not very far from the other questions. In truth, how can I get there? Also fully utilize the sound judgment of human reasons and evaluate the best route to get to the goal decided upon. The last question breaks down the task to be done into the particulars of actions and the daily routine. Self-acknowledgement and self-determination are here bridged by self-government. So the human person does not only access reason to assess his or her personality, identity, and personal goal. He or she is also gifted with the will to command the self to go through the steps and hence be able to do the transitions from knowledge to a fully determined self. Goal setting through reasons and decision is complemented by the ability to freely move the self and command the body in action. It is illustrating the actions to be consistent with the end in the mind that the self reaches improvement. For instance, if one wishes to get the goal of finishing a degree, one starts with the reality of the self, knowing what one needs to improve and support the goal of graduating. A sound decision helps the student to maximize the training and students that go with being enrolled in the university. One knows in honesty that a paper diploma that reflects a degree is hardly a value without true knowledge and mastery of what one is expected to know. Hence, if one goals is to graduate with competence, one elect the daily, monthly, semestral, or even yearly tasks that ought to be completed. Professors, lectures, and even exam are then seen in this light as aid in reaching the goal. Furthermore, the self is not only a passive receiver of what transpires externally. One designs the path and cooperates with the situation to reach the end that has been reasonably set by the self.
Thomas Aquinas defined love as the choice to will the good of the others. While this definition lacks an informatism that we often associate with love, it much more fully encompasses and expresses what love is in its fullness. So the perfection of Aquinas, no. So Aquinas goes on to argue that all substances seek their own perfection. That is, they all seek either final end of fully realize that state of existence or actuality. Yet, a substance cannot achieve that a final end without exerting the power it has it virtue of each substantial form. So, and also, Aquinas said that all human actions are governed by general principle or perfect that is foundational to and necessary for all practical reasoning. Good is to done and evil is to be avoided. Okay, the natural law of Aquinas. Aquinas wrote most extensively about natural law. He stated that the light of the reason is the place by nature, and that is in every man to guide him in his acts. Therefore, the human beings alone more God creature use reason to lead their lives. This is the natural law of Aquinas. Okay, for the conclusion of this relational of perfection of love Aquinas, so Aquinas drawn from the 5 ways. It's the God, his own existence, and also he is epton, which means easy subsistence, which is existent himself or underived. It means existent. So to put it another way, so God is not a creature. Thomas Aquinas was influential in his articulation of the theory of natural law. He shown us that the universe was determined by order of love that ought to define the sense of the good of human beings. Whether the one believe in the transcendence, loving God or not, he shown that how people could in truth and order to things in that way that was inherent to all beings that existed.